Good morning, everyone, and welcome to College 101, Starting Your Path to College. My name is Tamara Batiste Wallace, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sledge to kick us off this morning, and then we'll get started with the webinar.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Rebecca Sledge, and I am the chair for the Education Committee for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, the Northern Virginia chapter. So, parents and students, I thank you for taking time out of your Saturday morning to be with us. You are in store for a treat today from our guest speaker who has a wealth of information to share with students and parents about starting their path to college and learning all those skills and learning the terminology and learning the things that they can do to prepare right now for middle, right now while they're in middle school as they enter high school in a few years. So we're going to have an opportunity to jump right into it. You have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat room, and our speaker will be able to answer those questions either throughout her presentation or at the end. But I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Tamara Batiste Wallace. She is the founder and owner of the College Application Specialist. Her company was founded in 2015 and has been able to guide students to admissions to over 30 nationally recognized colleges and universities, to include schools such as Harvard, Penn State, Howard University, Morehouse, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech, just to name a few. Miss Tamara, as she is affectionately known by her students, uses more than 20 years of her management consultant experience, project management, and organizational change management experience to help her students discover who they are, what their goals are, and what colleges would be the best fit, not only socially, but academically and financially as they start their path to realizing their dreams. Ms. Tamara is a two-time engineering graduate of Cornell University. She's especially adept at helping potential STEM majors lay out their path for a strong college application, from introducing freshmen and sophomores to the concepts of how high school success translates to college admission, guiding juniors to identifying what schools are a good fit for them, and giving parents the tools to evaluate what they can afford, and coaching seniors to create and submit quality applications that set them apart. Her company, the College Application Specialist, is here to reduce the stress of college admission process and provide the advice, tools, guidance that your family needs to succeed. Ms. Tamara is a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Northern Virginia chapter. She's an avid Washington Nationals fan. She loves the art and is passionate about seeing women and girls pursue and thrive in STEM careers. She lives in Montgomery County, Maryland, with her husband. And without further delay, I bring to you Miss Tamara.
Good morning again, everyone. So, as Dr. Sledge said, I am Tamara Batiste Wallace. And just a little bit about me that wasn't in my bio. I did start the company in 2015, and I did so because I had a family member who was starting his application journey, and it just wasn't going very well. It was a little stressful for him and his family. He didn't really understand how to position himself well, and they asked me for help because he was really struggling with writing. And fast forward till now, he actually just finished with his master's. He graduated from MIT and is now pursuing his PhD at Berkeley. So this business is a labor of love, but it's also grown up, whose primary purpose is to help parents and students navigate this process with the minimal level of stress, because we know applying to college is wrapped up in a whole bunch of emotions and stresses and delights and other things that you're not necessarily anticipating. So that's just a little bit more about me. As we get started here, just wanted to let you know, this presentation is designed to be very interactive. There'll be some polls. There'll be some times when we ask you to put some things in the chat. We have a couple people monitoring the chat window for me. So if you have questions that I'm not either asking you already or that I didn't answer along the way, please go ahead and type them into the chat window, and our ladies will break in and get those questions to me, and we'll try and get them answered. As Just so you guys know, I'm also putting the slides up on my website so that you'll be able to download them as resources, because there are a couple links in here that I think might be helpful for you. So I'll pop up that link at the end of the session. Okay. All right. So first poll of the day, let's learn a little bit more about you. And what I would like to know is, what grade are you in? And I'll give you guys a couple minutes here. Okay, so it looks like the majority of our participants who aren't parents, because I'm guessing my others are parents, are either in the 6th or the 7th grade. Okay, that's awesome. Again, please interact, because this is for you, not for me. And I want you to get the most out of this that you can. All right, so in the chat window, doesn't matter if you're a parent or student, could you jot down maybe a couple things that you think you most want to learn today, and we'll try and hit some of those highlights as we're going through. Did not mean to do that. Time frames to get things started. Okay. Anything else? We will be going through that today. I forgot to mention, in my world, there's no such thing as a dumb question. So if you have a question and you've been too afraid to ask it somewhere, this is a safe space to ask it. Okay, I'm going to learn about what colleges with the best math courses, because I want math to be my major. That's awesome. What is college like? How to prepare my child when college seems so far away from them. Okay. I had a friend who was a math major. She's awesome. Okay, how to help my child get ready for college. Okay. All right, so I'm seeing a theme here. Sort of, one is prep and what you have to do if you're a parent or a student to get ready for college, and then what's the college experience like. We'll touch on what the college experience is like when we get to senior year. So if I don't mention it then, somebody ping me and remind me, and we'll talk about what college is like then, okay? Last thing I'm seeing is the importance of test scores and the different types of tests required for different types of schools. We are actually going to touch on that as well. All right, so with that, let's get started. Oops. So all these ladies that I have up on the screen here are folks that have been either in the news over the last 2 years, or some of them in the last 2.5 days for various reasons. But I put them all together on one page because all these ladies, every single one, has had some sort of thing that they've overcome, be it somebody standing in their way and telling them they weren't capable of something, somebody telling them that they weren't ready to do something, or flat out somebody telling them they couldn't do something, or inner doubts. Like, am I really able to do this? Is this for me? Can I do this? And every single one of these ladies, from Kizmiki Corporate, who did the vaccine that's for coronavirus that's going around now, to Amanda Gorman, who we saw on Wednesday is ridiculously fabulous and overcame a speech impediment, to Ayanna Presley, who actually didn't finish college but has had to come out here with her authentic self and show the world who she really is. It's very brave of her to be out here with alopecia. And of course, Stacey Abrams, who had a lot of people tell her she couldn't do different things, and she won us an election. So there you go. My point in putting all these fabulous examples of Black women up here are that you can do things. You can be any of these people. There is no limit to what you are able to accomplish. From Amanda Gorman to Michelle Obama to Vice President Harris, there is nothing you can't accomplish. And it all starts with you envisioning what you want to do, being flexible along your journey, and not giving up. So, with that, in the chat window, I want to know, why do you think people go to college? Why go to college? It's a lot of work, right? To get there and to stay there and to graduate from there. Why go? What do you think? Put your answers in the chat window. To earn opportunities for your dream career, okay? To get an education and have a stable job. What else? Gain the knowledge for a career. To expand knowledge of what the world can offer. I love that one. Yes, there are so many things you can study. And, in helping some of my students this past year apply to college, I learned about majors that didn't exist even a couple of years ago. I mean, the things you can study is never ending. To fine tune your interests, yes. Absolutely. And here's one thing people will tell you: learning never stops, whether you're in school or not. You're always learning something. Okay. So here are a couple of the reasons. Oh, to learn independence. I love that one. Yes. I always tell, when I do my other college one-on-one presentation for high school students, I always tell my parents and students the goal is for you to be Lawrence so that you're not living in your parents' basement. Yes, independence. So a couple reasons, other reasons people might go to college, to make lifelong friends. I know the folks that I went to school with many years ago are still some of my best friends now. They were in my wedding when I got married 4 years ago. So people say that to you, like when you're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to know the people I'm going to school with now, like 3 years from now. But believe me, the people you go to college with, you will know them 20 years from now, which is really, really interesting. Sorry about that. The poll just popped up on me again. We talked about to become or live independent. Nothing prepares you to be an adult like having to figure out how to get up and go to class on time by yourself, how to manage your schedule, how to figure out, where and when to eat. If you're not on meal plan, cooking for yourself, making sure you have groceries. Believe it or not, as a college student, you still have bills to pay, getting those paid on time, and of course, our never-ending friends, the financial aid office and the bursar, which are two different offices that help you actually get the money you need to go for college. That's financial aid, and then pay the bill, which is the bursar, and they're not the same people. To gain more knowledge and experience, definitely. Like I said, there's a world of possibilities out there, and no two universities or colleges are the same. Every single place approaches things a little bit differently, and the experience is going to be a little bit different. So it's really important to stop and think about not only what your why for going to college, but what type of college you want to go to and what type of experience you want to have while you're there. Figure out what you really love to study. College is all about teaching you how to think, right? I'm going to say that again. College is all about teaching you how to think. And if you're going to spend a lot of time thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to start thinking about things you actually like and love, as opposed to things that you really don't like or don't love. That's the whole concept behind a major and a minor. Preparing you to join the workforce. Absolutely. If graduate school is not in your future, that school after college, then yeah, the goal after your first 4 years of college are probably to go and join the workforce and get a job, right? On average, over a lifetime, college graduates earn significantly more than non-college graduates. And why is that important? It's important because your parents, and I'm sure you want to be comfortable once you leave home, right? You want to be able in a non-pandemic world to go out to eat sometimes and to go have fun, and go on vacation, and to not have to worry about things. And the more education you have in the field that you're going into, the more likely you are to see that return on your investment. There are plenty of careers that earn good money that don't require you to go to college. We're always going to need plumbers. We're always going to need electricians. We're always going to need people who can come and fix the things that break in the middle of the night and flood your house, right? We're always going to need those folks, and those folks are skilled. They go to school too, they just don't go to college, but they go to school to understand and learn how to do their trade. Over time, though, you want to be in a position where you're setting yourself up for success. So if you're not going into one of those skilled trade areas, it makes sense that you start thinking about careers that might require you to go to college. And then, of course, because you want to make your family proud. I don't know a family alive who, when they see a kid graduate from something, doesn't throw a party and isn't happy for them. So um, if for no other reason, at the end of 4 years, you get a big party. All right. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of boring stuff, which is about to come up. So I'm going to prepare you now. It's going to be a little bit boring, but I want you to get through it because it's really important for you to understand these terms and these things that people throw out there that you may not understand. So we're going to talk about terminology. We're going to review the timeline. So what it takes from now in middle school all the way through high school to get to college. And along the way, we're going to talk about facts versus fiction. And again, when we get to the senior year part of the timeline, we'll talk a little bit about what college is like. Any questions? Okay. All right. So let's get through the boring part and the basics real quick. This is the reason I'm putting these slides on the website so you can download these terms. This is not the complete list of terms that you will be hit with as you're in your journey to college, but these are the big ones, and I wanted to make sure we got through these. So community college, which when I was growing up was also referred to as junior college. It is a 2-year college, right? And they award something called an associate's degree after you complete 2 years. Community colleges are usually funded by the state. So around here, it's NoVA, right? And if there's a lot of campuses around Northern Virginia, and sometimes you'll actually see it spelled out as Northern Virginia Community College, but everybody calls it NoVA. Then there's college or university. These terms get used interchangeably, but there is a little bit of a difference. Universities are bigger places than colleges. Okay, so University of Virginia, Virginia Commonwealth University, right? Colleges are usually a little bit smaller. The College of William and Mary, right? Um, what happens? They both give you the same type of education. They both give you a 4-year degree at a minimum, so that's called a bachelor's degree, right? But universities tend to go a little bit further. Sometimes they offer masters, which is when I said graduate school earlier. So that's the degree after your bachelor's degree. And some of them also offer PhDs, which our sister Dr. Sledge has. Excuse me. And that's called a terminal degree. So there are different levels of degrees that you can get. What I didn't put up here was things like a medical degree or law degree. Those are professional degrees. Those are also offered by universities, but you have to wait until you finished your bachelor's to get those types of degrees. Colleges and universities are 4-year colleges. So unless you're accelerated for some reason, plan on staying for 4 years, just like high school. And don't let it get you tripped up when you're looking at a school's website, whether it has it's just a college and it has just academic departments, like some things you can study, or whether it's a university and it's divided into colleges and it has lots of things you can study. The point is, if you're at a 4-year university, you can study just about anything. Okay. We have for-profit colleges. So most colleges and universities are nonprofits, meaning their mission is to increase the knowledge in the world. And they do that through 2 primary means. One is research. So that's what a lot of the professors do. And then the second is teaching. and that's educating you all to make the world a better place. For-profit universities have a mission to educate students, but they also have a primary mission to make a profit. And as coming out of high school, it's much better for you to pursue a degree at a nonprofit university than a for-profit college, because the nonprofit university is going to be more invested in seeing you graduate and graduate on time. For-profit colleges are interested in keeping you as a student. So there's the difference. Um, HBCU and PWI. So those are two terms that usually get used, opposite each other, but they really shouldn't. HBCUs are, historically Black colleges and universities. Howard, Hampton, A&T, Del State, excuse me, Florida A&M, Alabama A&M. There are 157 HBCUs in the country that are scattered all over the country. Believe it or not, they're not all concentrated in the South. There's some in the North. There's some in the Midwest. They're all over the place. And some of them have more of a focus in one area than another. Some of them happen to be very big. Some of them, are very small. It really just depends on what type of experience you're looking for, just like any other university. We tend to contrast them with PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions. A lot of colleges, most of them out there, because I said only 157 are HBCUs and there's like 4,000 in the country. So most colleges are PWIs, and that just simply means that a majority of the student population and most likely the faculty are white. That doesn't mean that you can't go there. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't go there. It just means that the likelihood of you having a significant cohort of people that look like you might be a little bit more challenging to find, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. I went to a PWI, actually, it's the background that you see there. It's my alma mater, Cornell. And believe me, I have a lot of friends who look like me, who got me through my college experience, and again, are still friends with me to this day. Any questions before we head to the next section about the next page of terms and acronyms? Because I know I just threw a lot out there. Okay. So you might hear the term liberal arts college or the liberal arts, and you might hear that in opposition to STEM, which we'll get to in a second. But the liberal arts are critical. Liberal arts help us think. And guess what? You're taking them now because everybody's taking some sort of math, everybody's taking some sort of science, or social studies, history, right? You may have started a foreign language in middle school, which is awesome. And then at the college level, there's something called philosophy that a lot of people who go into law either major or minor in because it teaches them how to think and puzzle through logic problems, which is what's really needed to get into law school. Liberal arts programs cover the S and M part of STEM, so the science and math part of STEM. So for the parents out there, I know there's a big push, at least in our country for the last couple of years, on becoming STEM majors because there's not a lot of us and that's where the jobs are. That is a true statement. There are a lot of people that go into STEM. There are a lot of STEM opportunities open. I'm still working in a STEM field myself, but I will tell you, we also need people from the liberal arts. 20 years of engineering has taught me that if I don't pay attention to how people are feeling, if I don't understand what they're thinking, and if I can't communicate with them, then it doesn't matter how brilliant my engineering is, I'm not going to get anywhere. We need people who understand how to communicate with people, who can bring in different viewpoints, who think differently from us. So where STEM is very important, and I think all students should have something that's covered in STEM, particularly where computers are concerned, it's just as important that students be grounded in the liberal arts as well. So as you start thinking about, you and your students start thinking about what you want to do when you grow up and what college you want to go to and all those types of things, don't shy away necessarily from the liberal arts because they're just as important as STEM. All right, I think, there we go. Um, Majors and minors. So remember I said earlier that one of the reasons people go to college is to figure out what they love to study, right? So people, what that's called in college is a major, and it's required. Every college makes you declare a major at some point. Declare just means choose, okay? And usually they make you choose it at the end of your second year, which is your sophomore year, so that your junior and senior year, your third and your fourth year, are spent intensely studying those subjects. Minors aren't necessarily required, but it's usually a good idea because maybe there's something you really wanted to study, but you couldn't do a double major because that would just been too much work. Well, make it a minor so you can get some of those classes and stimulate those things in your brain. Usually, minors complement your major, but it's not required to. So if you wanted to be a political science major and an art minor, guess what? You can do that. The world is really your oyster there. Dual enrollment and advanced placement are things that, once you start getting later in middle school and into high school, become very important. Dual enrollment is when you're taking college level classes during high school. These partnerships really are pretty cool because there's some high schools that don't offer a wide range of AP classes. In our area, that's not so much the case. You have a lot of choices, but sometimes how you get into those classes is a little bit difficult. So you might find doing a partnership at NoVA through one of your high schools is easier. The catch is this: you do earn college credit when you take these classes, but there may not always be transferable to the college you want to go to. So if you're taking something at Nova and then end up going to Mason, you're probably okay. Okay. If you take something at Nova and then end up going to Georgetown, you probably aren't going to be able to transfer those credits easily. And it's because each college has their own rules for what does and doesn't transfer. And it's kind of a long and drawn out process. But I'm pointing it out because I don't want you guys to fall into the trap of, oh, I'm going to take all these dual enrollment classes and I'm going to skip my freshman year of college and save some money. Because it doesn't always work that way. It works that way when you go from um, a community college in your area to a state school sometimes, but not always. I know here in Maryland, even when you do that, they still have you take some basic classes as a freshman because they want you to have that freshman experience. So it's tempting, it's useful, but it's not the be all end all. So don't fall into that trap. AP classes are favored more by colleges than dual enrollment classes when they're offered. So if you have a choice, APs are usually better than dual enrollment because it's a standard curriculum across the country and they have a better way of judging using the AP test, whether you're really mastering the material or not. AP tests are usually, so the courses throughout the entire school year, and then you take the AP tests in May of that year. Last year, because of coronavirus, they were held online and they were a little bit harder to administrate than normal. I'm hopeful that by this May, they would have worked out the kinks with the online system. But thousands of students across the country take AP tests every year, and usually um, it's on a 1 to 5 scale. If you get a 3 or above, colleges will grant you some sort of college credit towards it, and that's when the skipping out of classes actually starts to kick in. That's how the student I was mentioning at MIT graduated in 3 years instead of 4 years because he basically skipped a half semester and then made it the other half semester up over the winter. There is a corollary program. Some high schools around here offer the International Baccalaureate program. You'll hear it termed as IB. And IB is an international curriculum that you basically start in the ninth grade. You can start it a little later, but you will be catching up. It is a lot more intense than your normal high school curriculum. There's a lot of research involved. There's a lot of writing involved. There's a lot of independent learning involved. And then, of course, at the end, because what's life without a test? There's a test, a series of tests in your senior year, which also lands you college credit when you finish. Last year, the IB test didn't happen because of coronavirus. This year, they're trying their best to get it back on track. Colleges made an exception last year for students who completed the curriculum but weren't able to take the test. So they didn't lose anything by not being able to take the test, but understand that at the end of 4 years, there is a testing process. Transcript. simply a record of your grades, and you have one now. It's just your report card strung together. That's really what a transcript is. And when you get into high school, the transcript that they really pay attention to is from ninth grade onwards. Unless you've taken an honors class, like you started your foreign language in your eighth grade year, or you started your like algebra 1 in your eighth grade year, then they'll go back to eighth grade and take those transcripts. And then last but not least, the biggie tests. And this has actually changed in this past week. There's the SAT and the ACT, right? And they're basically equal. The difference between the SAT and the ACT is that the ACT tests a little bit more on math and science than the SAT does. So if you have a student that's really good at science, it might be worth looking at the ACT over the SAT. It doesn't matter which test you take. I'm going to say that again. It does not matter anymore whether you take the SAT or the ACT. It's best to take a practice test in both to see which one you like better, like which one resonates with you more, because the timing on each is a little different. How many like minutes you get per question is different, but it literally, from a college admission standpoint, does not matter. The thing that's changed is that thing at the bottom called SAT2 tests, which used to be called subject tests as well. The College Board, yay, finally just killed them because they were annoying. Not many colleges were requiring them anymore. So your students are not going to have to worry about that. I'm praying that colleges and the College Board don't come along with something similarly ridiculous to replace it that stresses us all out, but those are gone now. So that's a real ding dong, which is dead moment for me because I had to take those and those were horrible. That's the end of the basics questions. Before I move on, are there any questions about the terms that we just went through? Because I know this is a lot of information and it's boring. Okay. Okay, Kendall, go ahead and type your question in. Okay, the question is, since I'm in seventh grade but taking Algebra 1 honors, does that mean colleges are looking at me right now or just in the eighth grade? So if you're asking whether you're starting Algebra 1 now, are people going to look at it on your transcript in seventh grade? That's a very good question. They're going to want to know when you took Algebra 1. They probably won't look at the grade so much as the fact that you took it in seventh grade. Same with whatever math you end up taking in eighth grade. If you're worried about the actual grade you're getting in the class, right? I would say do your best. You're still in middle school. It's all good. Colleges calculate GPA starting with your ninth grade year. They look at what you took if you're taking honors classes back in eighth grade, but they're not using that to calculate your GPA necessarily. Also know that when colleges calculate your GPA, they have their own little formula for doing it because some schools give you extra credits for taking honors classes and some don't. So when your transcript hits the college admissions office, they recalculate your GPA to make it more standard. So it's more of an apples to apples comparison. So don't stress about it, just do your best. Next question is, what grade do you take the ACT or ACT in? You're welcome, Kendall. That is, you start taking that in your junior year, but we're going to talk about how to prepare for that earlier, because there are some other tests that you take in your 10th grade year and then repeat in your junior year that are designed to give you a flavor of it. And there's nothing stopping you now from thinking about how to start preparing for some of these standardized tests, particularly in the English part. The math part's a little harder, only because the SAT and the ACT build upon what you're learning in school, but English is English, right? And grammar is grammar. And some of those concepts, believe it or not, you've been learning since third grade, you just don't know it. Any other questions before we move on to the timeline? We're going to get into the fun part now. Okay. think I have a quick poll question. Maybe. Yes. So what parts of STEM can you study at a liberal arts college? Engineering and math and science, technology and engineering, or none of the above? I'm going to put this up in a poll question and launch the poll now. Give you guys 30 more seconds to vote. Okay. I'll share the results properly this time. So math and science is correct. The S and the M portion are things you can study at a liberal arts college. That is a true statement. Now you might see at a larger university in the School of Arts and Sciences, sometimes you see things like data science, sometimes you see things like information systems, which are technology related-ish, but more than likely those things are in either the engineering school or sometimes even in the business school because they have so much crossover potential. But yes, math and science definitely at a liberal arts college. Okay, next question. Successfully completing dual enrollment or AP classes guarantees you college credit. True or false? And I'm going to put that up in a poll for you right now. True or false? I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. A little more than half of you voted. And the answer is false. Just merely completing the classes, either dual enrollment or AP, does not guarantee you college credit. Even if you do well on the on the AP test, you're not guaranteed college credit. The benefit of dual enrollment and AP classes is that they are harder. They start to prepare you for the college experience, but they don't necessarily guarantee you college credit. All right. So now we're going to start talking about the timeline. But before we do that, I just want to point out 3 of the ladies that I had on the slide earlier. So we all know love Michelle Obama. But did you know that when she was in middle school, when she transitioned from elementary to middle school, she started to get put in classes that were lower level, that weren't honors, and she was a little bit bored until her mom was like, nope, we're not having this, and she intervened. And then by the time she got to high school, her counselor told her that she wasn't smart enough to go to Princeton, even though her brother was already there. They were like, no, that's not for you. And of course, we all know she went to Princeton anyway. Stacey Abrams was the valedictorian of her high school. That means that she was first in her class. And Georgia had a policy at the time that, I don't know if they still do it, that if you were the valedictorian at the end of the year, you got to go meet the governor. And they brought all the valedictorians from all over Georgia to meet the governor. And her family didn't have a lot and used the bus to get to the governor's mansion. And the guard wouldn't let her in because he didn't believe that people who took the bus belonged there. And her dad was like, nope, you're letting my kid in. This is her invitation. She belongs here and we're going. And she said that stuck out more in her mind for how the guard acted towards her than the whole experience of being valedictorian, but she pushed through that. And she still has challenges. She went on to law school. And just like Michelle Obama and actually President Obama, President Michelle Obama didn't pay off their law school debt until they were in the White House. And stop and think about that. They had been working for years at really good jobs and didn't pay off their law school debt until they started selling some books. And it's the same with Stacey Abrams. She's just now turning the corner on paying off a lot of her debt with all the books that she's written, which is awesome. But I'm pointing this out because we always want to focus on the accolades and the wonderful things they do, which is awesome. But nobody gets anywhere without struggling somehow. Okay. And then Amanda Gorman, of course, with her speech impediment. And I don't know if you guys caught the interview on CNN, but she was talking about how she was able to overcome it and how she's still practicing and overcoming it. She has problems pronouncing the letter R. And she said, boy, she made it hard for herself by, writing a poem that had a lot of R's in it, like rise. She's like, why did I do that? But, she's constantly challenging herself. She's now graduated from Harvard, cum laude. And of course, we know her from the inauguration, but she's also an author. How wonderful for the struggle. Doctorate debt is no joke. I'm about to go down that journey myself. So I want to point this out to you guys because now we're about to start talking about the timeline. I want you to keep in your mind that, again, nothing is impossible and nothing is perfect. Everybody struggles. We're human. That is the definition of being human. So whatever little bumps or big bumps you hit along the road, don't give up, work through them. And if you need help, ask for it. So with that, let's start talking about the timeline. Okay, so the common theme here, you're going to see through all these slides that look like this, is to keep your grades up. So I'm not going to say it again because we're just going to take that for granted that you're going to do as much as you can and work as hard as you can to keep your grades up. That doesn't mean that if you don't get straight A's, you're not going to college, because there are plenty of people who didn't have straight A's who've gone to good colleges. But it does matter that you are trying your best. It does matter that you're doing your homework. It does matter that as hard as it is to sit in front of the computer and do online school, that you stick it out. It's hard right now. And I want to acknowledge that because I have a lot of students in high school right now who are just tired of being online. So kudos to you for getting up on a Saturday morning and listening to this, because I know how hard it is to be on Zoom. I know how hard it is to listen to somebody talk and not always be able to focus. It's a lot. And I want to applaud you guys for making the effort this morning. So while you're in middle school, what do you have to do? Well, the first thing you need to do is let your counselor know that you want to go to college. Don't assume that your counselor knows who you are. And this is true in a non-pandemic world too. So when we finally go back to school, in person, it's the same thing. Don't assume that your counselor knows everything about you and your hopes and dreams. You got to talk, right? You got to communicate. None of us are mind readers yet, or there would not have been $1 billion jackpot last night for the lottery, right? Because somebody would have just scooped it up. So let your counselor know that you want to go to college. And when you're thinking about, the young lady said, oh, I love math. I want to be a math major. That's awesome. You know what you love to do. But it's just as important to know what you don't like to do so much. And it's not because you don't want to focus on those things. It's usually what you don't like to do so much are the things you kind of need some help in, right? And you want to make sure that you're getting that help. So just because you're not good at something or that you don't like it so much doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you need to focus on it a little bit more. But really pay attention to what you do like and what you don't like, because you'd be surprised how many professions are out there based on what you love to do. And one of the things my students struggle with is they always are like, oh, well, math and science and this. Well, you know what? I have a student who wants to be a doctor, but she also sews and she designs her own clothes and she knits. She knit her mom a sweater for Christmas. Like, she is fabulous with the arts. And it's just as much as a part of her as her wanting to be a doctor. When she goes off to college, she's going to find a way to keep up her interest in fashion and also prepare herself for medical school. She doesn't have to pick one over the other. And some of the times, the things that you like to do outside of school are just as important as the things you like to do inside of school. So think about that. Don't be afraid to try new things, okay? This is the time to explore. You never know what you don't like until you try something. You never know what you do like until you try something. So don't be afraid to try new things. Trying and failing, or trying and struggling, or trying and like, I like this, but I'm not so good at it, which is a lot of things that I do in life, are good because they open up your brain. They make you think. They challenge you in ways that you didn't think you could be challenged. And there's some things that I've done in life and I'm just like, I never thought I would like doing those things and it turned out to be the most fun things I've ever done. And I see we have a question, maybe. Oh, my volume. Okay. Um, I will try. Give me just a second. I will just speak louder. And if you guys are still having problems hearing me, let me know and I'll move my mic closer again. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry. Um, don't be afraid to try advanced or honors classes and not just in math and science. So if there's a foreign language you want to start in middle school, which would be awesome, by the way, or if there's an opportunity to do something outside of school, that might be that's a good idea as well. You want to challenge yourself in a way that you start exploring new things. That could be outside of school too. Um, there are plenty of programs around here run by civic and social organizations like the Coalition. So there's some nonprofits out there. There are fraternities and sororities out there. There's things like the Urban League, National Society of Black Engineers, who all do different types of things. Some are STEM based, some are law based, some are fashion based. Doesn't even matter what's out there. Try new things, get involved. A lot of the programs, if you aren't able to afford them, come with scholarships. Just let somebody know that you need help to participate, but don't be afraid to try new things. Okay. We had two questions in the Q&A. The first is, can I still ask my guidance counselor if I'm in the 6th grade? I'm assuming asking about or letting them know you want to go to college. Yes, they should know that now. And what if I'm already in honors classes? If you're already in honors classes, that's really awesome sauce. Keep up the good work. If you're not in honors classes, but think you can handle the honors classes work, that's definitely something you want to talk to your counselor about. If you have not started a foreign language and you have the room to start a foreign language, definitely start a foreign language. Colleges look for a minimum of 2 to 3, but the most selective look for 4 continuous years of the same foreign language. Some will take 2 and 2, meaning 2 years of one language and 2 years of another language. But a lot of students that are the most competitive by the time they get to senior year are taking an AP class in a language like AP French, AP Spanish, AP Latin, whatever it is. I have a student right now who's taking American Sign Language as her foreign language. That does count. If that's something that's interesting to you and your school offers it, it does count as a foreign language. All right. Hope I answered that question in the Q&A. And somebody said, Miss Alexa says, well, I want to do art. Art is cool too. Would you believe that there is an actual AP art class? So in high school, you're going to have to take electives. Art can be some of your electives. And there are specific colleges out there that focus on art schools. There are other programs that just allow you to major in art. So go to a 4-year university and major in art. Same thing is true with music and dance, by the way. So any of the arts. The arts are just as important as STEM. I would say if you're going to go into art or any of the arts, one of the things that you want to do now in middle school is start to build your portfolio. So keep your pieces together. That's what a portfolio is, just a collection of your work. Keep your pieces together. Create maybe a separate, completely separate social media account for your work where you showcase and highlight your work. Keep it focused on that. Don't tag it to anything else. Don't follow it or don't have them follow you. You can follow it, but not the other way around. But if you're going to go into dance, music, singing, playing an instrument, any of those types of things, start pulling together your work now. It counts. All right, we had a couple questions. Hope for Paws is a rescue channel who rescues animals. So if you're looking to work with animals, there are a couple ways you can. The question was, I want to be like Hope for Paws. Is there a college like that? Hope for Paws is a rescue channel who rescues animals. So I'm going to answer that question in a couple of ways. So that organization is more than likely a not for profit or a nonprofit, right? So, yes, you can start a nonprofit right now if you wanted. It really doesn't matter what you start your nonprofit in, but the goals of nonprofits hopefully are to help or address a problem or advance a goal in society, right? This one just happens to be on rescue animals. There's nothing in college that prevents you from learning how to start nonprofits. People who go on and start nonprofits come from all different backgrounds, but if you want to learn how to run your nonprofit effectively, you might want to be a business major, right? That's one avenue to go. If you love animals and you want to work with animals and you see your excuse me, you see your career being somebody that works with animals, something in veterinary science or being a veterinarian is going to be in your future. At the undergraduate level, there are some schools out there with pre-vet programs, but with any pre type of a program, it doesn't automatically guarantee you admission to whatever you want to do after the pre. So like pre-med doesn't guarantee you getting into medical school. Pre-law does not guarantee you getting into law school. Pre-vet, that. Um, Veterinary schools are graduate schools. The programs for pre-vet are kind of all over the country, but like University of Florida, Cornell University is another one, my alma mater. They're veterinary schools all over the place, but it's usually a graduate degree. Um, because you're dealing with biology, you're still going to be looking at a lot of things that if you were going to be a pre-med major as opposed to working with animals. So biology, chemistry, math, um, how something called organic chemistry, which is the chemistry of the body as opposed to just chemistry like of rocks and plastics and stuff like that. All those types anatomy, all those types of things are things you're going to need to take as an undergraduate student. um, Unlike medical school where you could basically major in anything and go to medical school as long as you're taking your classes, pre-vet's a little bit more intense. You're going to want to pay attention to the requirements of what veterinary schools are looking for, so to tailor your major in college so that you're meeting those requirements and that you go prepared. I hope that answered your question. Okay. um Start thinking about visiting college campuses and attending college fairs. At the end of this presentation, there are a couple links to a couple upcoming college fairs. Alfred Streets is in a month, for example, their HBCU fair, but there are a couple coming up. But you're going to want to start thinking about what is it going to be what's it going to be like on a college campus. And you know what, the only way you're going to ever know what it looks like and envision yourself there is to go and visit. Now I know that's hard during COVID times because a lot of campuses are in various stages of open versus closed, but I'll tell you, um, visiting doesn't mean you have to go on a formal visit right now. Visiting could mean you just go, it's your afternoon to go get a walk. Hey, let's go over to Mason and just walk around campus, because you can do that. Just find a place to park and go for a walk. Okay. And last but not least, in middle school, please read a lot and practice your writing. The only way your writing gets better is if you're reading a lot, because that's how you expand your vocabulary. And by the time you get to high school and you have to start writing about yourself, boy, if you're just saying, um, I went to the store as opposed to I had this grand shopping experience at this, and aren't able to articulate and talk about yourself in a way that's interesting, it's going to be harder for you to get through your college application process. So I implore you, please read. And at this point, it doesn't even matter what you're reading. Just read. Expose yourself. And if you're the type of person that doesn't like to read, read about things that are at least interesting to you, right? Nobody's asking you to go out here and read like the 400-page novel. We're just saying read. So you could be reading the news, you could be reading a magazine, you could be reading a comic book. I don't really care. Just read. All right. Somebody also asked, can you do multiple music and instruments? So the answer to that is yes, there's nothing stopping you from being a polyglot, whether it's language, music, or art. Um, what is important is that over time you are you're demonstrating, you're just not picking up things to pick up things. In other words, a lot of people get really freaked out, like, oh, I don't have enough extracurricular activities. I got to go join this, like all these clubs my senior year. Colleges are more interested in what you love and what you are passionate about and what you demonstrate, like where you spend your time, than you spending your time kind of all over the place. So if you're the type of person who's playing like piano and guitar and violin, that's cool. That's awesome. But if you just picked up violin because you think it looks good on a college application, and you're not really passionate about it, and how you talk about it isn't in a passionate way, or how you spend your time practicing, you can't say, oh, I love this, then that's not necessarily the best thing. And before we hit the poll, somebody had another question. Is there a limit on how many colleges you can go to? So, yes, go to, but we'll explain that in a second, but no, to apply to, and I'll explain that too. So, you can only attend one college at a time, okay? But over the course of your life, you might attend many colleges for different degrees. So, the first college you attend out of high school for your bachelor's degree, you can only go to one college. Then the next college you go to for your master's degree might be the same one, might be a different one. Same thing if you're going to medical school or veterinary school. You're allowed to go to different colleges after you finish your first degree. There are some people who start at college one for their bachelor's degree and then realize, oh, I really don't like it here. I want to transfer. So they switch schools and they start going from one school to a different school and they finish at a different school. That's not very easy to do. Okay, it's not something we very much recommend. That's why when I work with students, we spend a lot of time thinking about where you want to go and what kind of college experience you want, because transferring is very, very hard. In terms of applying to college, there's really no limit on how many colleges you can apply to, but applying to college is a lot of work. My students spend about 20 to 30 hours per application doing a college application. We apply to about 9 schools on average. And there's a method to the madness behind the 9 schools, but there's really nothing limiting you from applying to more. I just caution you, if you do that, you need to be organized and you need to be ready to write and to work. Okay. See, we have something in the chat. All of the above. Okay. All right. So, poll question. So I'm all about polling. Ta-da-ta-da. What is the most important thing you can do now to prepare for college? Having good grades, taking challenging classes, doing fun things and responsible things after school, practicing your writing, or all of the above? And with 73% of the vote in, you guys are correct. It is all of the above. All of these things are important. All of these things may not always be important at the same time, because there's only 24 hours in a day and at least 8 of them we hope are sleeping. So there's 16 hours for you to do something with. But all jokes aside, all of these things are really important, and they keep being important no matter what grade you're in. Okay. So now we're moving out of middle school and we're going to talk about high school. Okay. So you'll see some of the same icons here, because guess what? Some of this stuff is still important. So when you are entering your 9th grade year, please let your counselor know that you want to go to college, and start getting to know your counselor as well. You may not have the same counselor all 4 years, and that's fine. But hopefully all 4 years, the staff in the guidance office will be the same and they talk to each other, right? And as they hand off students from year to year, they'll be able to know you and help the counselor that gets you the next year understand a little bit more about who you are and what your background is. Don't think that your counselor is there just for college. They're there to help you with other things too. But if they don't know that you want to go to college, they won't be able to help you maximize your high school experience to put you in the best position to apply for college. Don't assume that the counselor knows you want to go. So what am I good at and what do I want to do with my life? Start volunteering or working, if you haven't already, about things that you love to do. If you're volunteering in particular, please choose volunteer activities that you're passionate about. If you really don't, if you get really wigged out by and this is probably a bad example in a pandemic, but it was my example. If you get really wigged out being around the hospital, then don't go be a candy striper. That's just not going to be for you, right? Don't do something in a doctor's office because that's just not going to be for you. Is it an awesome thing? Yes. Do colleges look at it? Sure. But if you're doing it and you're not passionate about it, it's going to show in your college application. You're not going to like it. And even though a lot of high schools around here require you to do volunteer work, they don't say where you have to do the volunteer work. They just say do some volunteer work. So please pick something you're passionate about. We have a question. Oh, um, so classes. Every high school lays out their requirements for graduation. Every single one. Okay. And most high schools around here lay out what class options they have every single year. So there's a book or a booklet or a PDF on the website that says, and it's usually under the school counselor's office that says, here's what you need to do to graduate. Here are the different types of classes you have to take, the credits you have to have, and here are the classes that we offer. My suggestion is you sit down and you take a look at it and start planning, right? And the reason for that is, again, the most competitive students are taking AP classes their senior year. And the only way you're doing that is if you're taking honors classes now, if you're ahead a little bit now, or if you're willing to make some classes up in the summer to get ahead, right? But you're not going to know that if you don't know what's offered. So do a little bit of future planning here. You can change your plan. That's okay. It's okay to change your plan, but not having a plan and you just kind of winging it makes life a lot harder. It also makes it easier if you're the type of student who wants to focus on a particular set of electives, because we have some specialized high school diplomas out here, understanding what the requirements for that are too. If you don't know that going in, it's kind of hard to make up the difference once you start high school. Start thinking about what majors and subjects you're good at. So often, the major and career, there's a linkage. It's not always a one-to-one linkage. Start thinking about what you want to do. I mean, Michelle Obama is known for being the first lady, but she's a lawyer, right? And more to the point, before she became first lady, she was doing healthcare policy, right? She was working in healthcare. Stacey Abrams, also a lawyer, but what do we know her for? Voting rights, right? And making sure we have the right to vote. Believe it or not, Amanda Gorman majored in sociology. She didn't major in writing. She didn't major in English. She majored in sociology, right? So there's no limit to what you can major in versus what you end up having a career as. And that's kind of my point. The thing that's new here is time management. Boy, I cannot emphasize this enough. And this is a skill you need in middle school too, but it really becomes important in high school. Start learning how to use a schedule. Now, a lot of us, because we're in virtual school, now have a schedule of some sort, right? We know when we're supposed to be online for class. Keep those good habits up. And also, please turn in your assignments on time. It does not matter if you do your homework if you do not turn it in. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. It does not matter if you do your homework if you don't turn it in. You can do all your homework, and then if you try to turn it in on the last day of class, your teacher's going to be giving you the side eye, and I guarantee you it's not going to count. Do not mess yourself up by not turning in your homework assignments in on time. And if you feel like you're falling behind, I haven't met a teacher yet who, if you go to them and say, I need some help, isn't willing to help you. And if you run into those types of teachers, go talk to your guidance counselor. Any questions on ninth grade? Okie dokie. All right, so we'll just use the chat window for this. We're gonna go through a little bit of myth versus facts. So separating fact from fiction. So if I get bad grades in ninth grade, I'll never be able to go to college. Is that a myth or a fact? Yes, it is definitely a myth. Now, remember, I said the one thing we want you to do is keep up your grades, right? But if you have some suspect grades in ninth grade, you can still overcome that. Colleges are looking for an upward trend, or if you're already a straight A student, a consistent trend of your grade. So if you didn't do so well in ninth grade, but you're starting to get it together in 10th and 11th, you're still going to be okay. If unfortunately you end up failing a class, please make sure that you're doing what you need to do over the summer to make up that class. Because it is important that you do stay on track. Falling behind is hard to recover from, and sometimes it's going to require a little bit of sacrifice to get back on track. If I don't take honors or advanced classes in ninth grade, I won't be able to by the 11th and the 12th grade. Myth or fact? I have a couple myths. Any facts? This is mostly a myth. If you don't set yourself up ninth grade ish or eighth grade ish to start being advanced, and it's going to be harder by the 11th and 12th grade, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. It means that you're going to have to make it up during the summer some other ways to kind of convince teachers that you're able to handle some of the honors work. If I play a sport, it doesn't matter what my grades are like. Colleges don't care anyway. They'll just let me in. That is a myth. And I'm going to say that again. It is a big myth. Colleges really do care because they have to what your grades are like if you're an athlete. Um, they don't just let you in because you're really awesome at pick your favorite sport. They let you in because you're awesome at pick your favorite sport and you can do the work while you're there. If you can't do the work at their particular college, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to have a hard time getting in. Okay. If I have to work or take care of my family after school or can't afford to participate in after school clubs, that will look bad to colleges. Myth or fact? Okay. I'm getting a lot of myth. That is absolutely a myth. Um, More so now than ever, if you are watching a younger sibling after school, if you're not able to participate in clubs because you have other family responsibilities or you're unable to because of financial reasons, there's a section on the application that gives you credit for actually watching your siblings or your grandparents after school and or allows you to explain your circumstances if you're unable to do a lot of extracurricular activities. So I don't want anybody to worry that if they're unable, not unwilling, and I just don't want to, but unable to participate in a lot of after school things or extracurricular things, that it's going to harm them. Just explain. And don't be afraid to do the writing to explain. I know it's hard and it's not something we always want to talk about, particularly if it's circumstances beyond our control, but it's important that colleges know who you are. So don't be afraid to say something. Okay. And then people will make fun of me if I take honors or advanced classes. Who thinks that's a myth or who thinks that's a fact? Okay. I got a couple of truths and I got a couple of myths. The answer is probably both, right? But at the end of the day, this is your education. This is your academic journey. This is your life. It can be tough when people make fun of you for doing things that are different or doing things that they aren't able to do, right? But that's their problem, not your problem. You do you. So even if people are making fun of you for taking advanced classes, go on and get that advanced class done. All right. So 10th grade, told you there was a lot of repetition here. So we're still talking to our counselor, even if it's the same counselor, we're reminding them, hey, I want to go to college. Um, we're taking the PSAT. So somebody was asking about testing earlier. So in 10th grade, that's your first opportunity, theoretically, and I say theoretically because the pandemic has screwed this up, to take the PSAT. Now, the P in PSAT means preliminary, not practice. Let me say that again. The P in PSAT means preliminary, not practice. Okay. Preliminary, it's just a measure of where you are then. And in 10th grade, it's a little different than it is in 11th grade. But it's a measure of how well you're absorbing the material from an SAT or standardized test perspective. It's called the PSAT because it's administered by the College Board, who also administers the SAT. So it's a little bit of a racket, but it is what it is. The good thing is that once you take your PSAT, which, oh, by the way, is on a different scale than the SAT, so one doesn't necessarily correlate to the other. They will say, if you got this on the PSAT, you can expect to get this on the SAT. And that's true under some circumstances, but take it with a grain of salt. The good thing about the PSAT and the College Board is once you take it, there's this thing called Khan Academy, which is free. You can link your accounts. You can create an account for each. You can link them, and the Khan Academy will give you a personalized study guide based on the answers to your PSAT of what you need to focus on. So it will show you where you got questions wrong, and it will put together a study guide for you, personalized to you, about these are the topics that you need to focus on, and this is what we think you need to do a little bit more studying on. And these are the simple types of ways early, low effort, high return, that you can start thinking about how to prepare yourself for these standardized tests. There's other things you can do, but this is one of the most important ones because it's easy peasy to link those things, and it's personalized and it's free. Okay. I'll get to the question popping up in just a second. Um, Researching your colleges with your major. So remember, we were talking about potential majors or potential career options. Now is the time to start thinking, oh, what kind of colleges have that type of major, right? So every college on the planet has a biology major. That is a true statement, right? But how do they approach that biology major? What are they asking you to take? Is it more applied biology or is it more research biology? Are you going to be in a lot of labs or are you going to be in the classroom all the time? How many people are taking the biology major? Um, are the professors in the biology major like doing new and cool things, or have they been there forever and they're just kind of ready to retire and they're not doing anything neat? Like, those are things that you want to start learning about. A lot of kids that I know want to go and major in psychology. Psychology is not the same thing at all universities. There are some universities, Virginia State comes to mind, and Johnson C. Smith come to mind, that approach the psychology major way differently, and probably, in my opinion, a little bit more interestingly, than, for example, UVA, which is pretty standard. And you'd think to yourself, oh, wow, UVA is the flagship. It's UVA. Why would I consider going to Virginia State for this? Well, look at the way they approach the psychology major and see if the classes are more interesting at one versus the other for you. You might find that UVA's sequence is awesome and this is what I want to do. But you might find that Virginia State, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't even know there was a class like that. You won't know until you start researching. And then again, time management. Please, please, by the time you get to 10th grade, have your time management worked out. I can't even tell you how many kids I have run into problems because they're doing all these activities and don't have time for class. That is the wrong way to do high school, folks. You might have a lot of fun, but you're not going to graduate on time. Trust and believe that you're going to have problems going to a four-year institution if your grades don't start in the upper trend here. And if you're focusing more on extracurriculars than you are on your grades, there has to be balance. All right, let me catch the question. I will give you, I will put the link in the resources. I will actually put the Khan Academy link on my website too. I'm going to give you guys a link to resources at the end. Okay. Any other questions about 10th grade? Don't drop your foreign language, by the way. If you've started one or you're in one, keep it up. Okay. Oh, I didn't mention, from a parent perspective, talking to your kids about college is not always fun. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because they haven't necessarily reached the level of maturity to have the level of discussion that you want. That doesn't mean you should give up, but I'm going to tell you now, is they're researching colleges and they're throwing out things, because right now in 10th grade, you're throwing out things to see if it's going to stick. Like, I heard about this college, my friend is going to this college, or I heard about this college because my sister's friend is going to this college, and I'm just exploring. Take it as an exploration moment right now. What I would do if I was a parent of a 10th grader is start looking about into the cost of college. There's a whole other series coming up in February about how, to understand financial aid and scholarships. But by the time you're in 12th grade, it's a little late. If you're a parent of a college bound student, it's on you to start thinking about the cost of college and how to not just pay for college, but what college is actually going to cost now. And there's some strategies you can do. And I hope you guys come back in February to learn a little bit more about those. Question. So yes, there will be a high school session. And at the end, we'll tell you when the high school session is coming up. All right. So myth versus fact. If I don't It doesn't matter if I take the PSAT now, it doesn't count. Who thinks that's a myth versus a fact? Use the chat window. Oops, keep doing that. Kendall, I love your answer with the question mark. um, it is a myth. The PSAT doesn't count for college admissions, but it does start to give you a kind of a what do I need to start focusing on. So you really do want to take it if you have the opportunity. Understand that in the coronavirus era we live in right now, schools are having trouble administering it remotely because it's not designed to be administered remotely, which is what's making life a little hard right now. I think a lot of 10th and 11th graders didn't get the opportunity to take it in our area back in October when it's usually given because of that reason. But yeah. Okay, Kendall's jumping ahead. If I'm doing all the work but I'm failing a class, it's my fault and there's nothing I can do. Is that a myth or a fact? Definitely a myth. Yes, if you're failing a class, um, and you're struggling, but you're sitting here doing all the work, please talk to your teacher. Please talk to your counselor. Please talk to your parents. There's all sorts of help out here, free and paid, to help you get caught back up in a class. Don't sit here and struggle in silence. That's about the worst thing you can do. I only need to speak to my school counselor if I'm having a problem. They're only there to solve problems. Myth or fact? That is also definitely a myth. School counselors love joy too. They're also here to help you navigate the rest of high school. You know what? School counselors get access to opportunities that you can only begin to imagine, right? And they're everything from things that are college related to things that are community related, things that are scholarship related, internship related. You name it, they have these opportunities. So just don't go to them if you have problems. If a college emails me, that means I'll get in when it's my time to apply. And by the way, I didn't mention, once you sign up and you take the PSAT, that's when the flood of emails and the things starting to come to your house from colleges start. So if if colleges start sending you stuff, that means that they really want you to go there. And when you apply, you'll just get in. Is that a myth or a fact? This is definitely a myth. Okay, we talked about for profit versus nonprofit colleges way in the boring beginning, right? But what we didn't say is that all colleges want you to apply. Why? Because the more people that apply, the more selective they look. This is basic math, guys. Um, Selective schools, you hear a lot about, oh, Harvard has like a 3% admit rate. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like, I have a better chance of getting hit by an asteroid than getting into Harvard. Well, why does Harvard have a 3% admit rate? By the way, I think it's around 7. It's because there's a fixed amount of spots, because there's only so many dorm spaces they have, right? So that never changes, divided by the number of people that apply. So if you have 50 spots, which obviously we have more, and 10,000 people are applying to 50 spots, boy, that admit rate is going to be really low, because it has to be, because they only have 50 places to put people to sleep, right? That's really what's gating all this. And oh, by the way, they're looking for a combination of 50 people that are a combination of really awesome people, really smart people, people that can afford to like pay for Harvard outright and don't need financial aid, some people that need 100% financial aid, some people that come from different countries, some people that come from this region of the country. They have all sorts of things that they're looking for. So this really tiny admit rate is all about growing the number of people who apply, because it makes them look better, right? So once you take the PSAT and your name gets in the system, because that's how it gets into the system, you are going to start to be bombarded with all this marketing material. And I want you guys to remember, it's marketing material, right? They have no idea in the 10th grade if you're pick your favorite university material or not. They're just trying to get their name out there so that you can research it. Now, the good news is you'll get a lot of information to research. The bad news is that as you go along in your college career, they're not necessarily taking into account whether your grades are great or whether they're not so great. But you're still going to get email and mail from these folks because you're on their list. So take it with a grain of salt. Just because Pick your favorite college is sending you a, oh, we can see you coming here email. Doesn't mean that when you submit your application, it's automatically going to, yep, we sent them an email. They're awesome. They're going to get in. That's not the way it works. All right. Participating in a lot of activities is good because that's all colleges care about. Myth or fact? Somebody said a little bit of true. So, not a lot of activities. Participating in the amount of activities that you allow you to be passionate, demonstrate your passion about the activities is what colleges care about. Colleges would rather see you do 2 things that you really care about than 12 things that you don't. Okay. All right. 11th grade. Woohoo. So,
Kevin,
11th
we
grade
have
is,
a question in the question and answer section.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Do permanent records exist? Ooh. So, yes, permanent records do exist. I don't think I've ever seen my permanent record. There wouldn't be anything in it anyway. If you're worried about academic discipline or behavioral discipline issues in terms of the permanent record, things aren't carrying from 8th grade to high school. So, high school, you still have a permanent record, but those things don't necessarily carry through, right? It's kind of like you get a set point, a set over point, unless something really egregious happened in middle school. Um, there is a question on the application that does ask you if you've ever been found guilty, not in a court of law, but if you've ever been academically disciplined or kicked out of school for any reason, blah, blah, blah. And there's also a section on the application for you to explain those circumstances. It's always better to disclose those circumstances when you're applying to college because if they find out and you didn't say something ahead of time, they could pull your offer of admission. Okay. Um, on the other hand, depending on what happened, that's also something. And if you've moved on from it, let's say you had a cheating issue in 9th grade, right? When your high school counselor writes your letter of recommendation, which we're going to talk about in 11th grade, they'll probably address that incident and say, Sally had this issue in the 9th grade. Since then, Sally has been an exemplary student. This was really just a mistake on her part. And, I really feel like she not only learned from this experience, but has become a better person for it because now she's learned blah, blah, blah. Right. So this is another reason why knowing your school counselor really well or your teachers really well, the ones that you ask for letters of recommendation is important because if you have anything in your permanent record that you're worried about, they can speak to how you've changed, overcome it, learned, etc. from those issues. I hope that answered that question. Um, 11th grade is your most important year of high school from a college perspective. It's the last set of grades that the school is going to use to make an admissions decision. That changed a little bit with coronavirus because everything got upended at the end of last school year. And some academic standards changed, but generally speaking, it's the end of 11th grade that people are looking to see that upward trajectory in your grades and a woohoo GPA, right? They want to see that you've taken these foreign languages. They want to see that you've taken these, challenging classes. And let me just go back. There are some students who go to high schools in the region that don't have the greatest amount of AP or honors classes. They take that into account too. So they get this thing called a school profile that says, hi, I'm school X and I've sent this many people to college and this is where they've gone. And the average SAT, ACT score of my students is this. And we offer, 2.3 AP classes or however many AP classes. So the schools have an understanding of what you're able to take versus what you actually took. So they want to see you taking the most challenging schedule you can that's offered, not necessarily trying to do the impossible and try and take all these AP classes that don't exist at your high school. So I want to put your mind at ease if you're in one of those positions. The PSAT gets taken again. If you didn't take it in 10th grade, this will be your first time. Same test. But this time it sort of counts for something. It doesn't count towards college admission, but it does count towards something called the National Merit Scholarship. And if you do well enough, I think if you're in the top 5%. The number changes every year based on the amount of students that take the test. You're eligible for a small scholarship that helps you, that can be applied to any college in the country. You want to be taking the SAT or the ACT this year, and you don't want to be taking it for the first time in June. So, in a normal year without coronavirus, the SAT and the ACT are offered all throughout the calendar year. And beginning in your junior year, in October, you take the PSAT, and ideally, the first time you would take the SAT or ACT is in January or February. And I say that because everybody takes this test more than once. It's very rare that you just knock it out of the park your first time. And you want to give yourself enough time to study more before you take it again, because May is when AP exams happen, right? And then a lot of students take it for the first time, take the SAT or ACT for the first time in June. And that doesn't leave a lot of time before their senior year to take it again. If you're taking your SAT in your senior year outside of a pandemic, because a lot that happened to a lot of my students this year, they had to take it during their senior year, you're very stressed. I cannot emphasize how hard it is to be trying to write college applications at the same time you're worrying about taking the SAT or the ACT. Do yourself a favor and start that process early. I meet seniors who still haven't taken it around this time. You cannot get in a non-pandemic year. You can't get into college without the SAT or the ACT. Now, right now, if you have a high school student, and I know this is a middle school audience, but we have a couple parents on here who also have high school students. Most of the world has got test optional because people are not trying to die just to take this exam, right? And I'm fully on board with that. Don't risk your life to take this test. So a lot of the schools have gone test optional this year, but for the parents who have middle schoolers in here, and for my middle schoolers in here, hopefully by the time you guys get ready to take this, the world will be somewhat back to normal. Because it'll be back to normal, please plan on taking it your junior year and don't procrastinate. Wait till your senior year. You'll just be setting yourself up for heartache. Um, Please make sure that as you're talking to or you're going through your junior year classes, that you're thinking hard about who you want to ask for a letter of recommendation. You never want to ask somebody for a letter of recommendation that's not going to speak well of you, right? The best letters of recommendations are from teachers who can explain how, not only how awesome a person you are, but how awesome a person you are academically. Like, this person really goes above and beyond in my class. This person really puts thought into their work. They really have a sharp mind. Those are the types of things that you want teachers to be able to say about you. It's on you to ask teachers for letters of recommendation. I always have my students do that at the end of their junior year, and then remind the teachers that they agreed at the beginning of their senior year so that they have all that lined up. You're not scrambling the beginning of your senior trying to figure out which teachers you're going to ask for letter of recommendation. Last but not least, coming out of your junior year, please make sure that you're setting yourself up for a full senior year schedule. The exceptions to that are, if you're in a situation where you have to work because you're helping to support your family, please continue to do that. But if you have options, meaning you don't have those types of obligations and you're just like, oh, I'm done with my requirements, I'm only going to take 3 classes and just take the rest of the day off. No. Colleges want to see that you're keeping a full senior year schedule. They want to see that you're challenging yourself. So if you've met your requirements and you could take AP classes or dual enrollment, please be doing that, because it demonstrates that you're dedicated and that you're going to continue to challenge yourself. They do look at your senior year grades midway through your senior year. So, like, meaning right now, you've gone, first and second semester, they look at those grades. And you want to make sure that they know that you're basically don't have senioritis the whole year. That would be really bad. We understand senioritis happens after March, but to have senioritis for your whole senior year, it's a whole different issue. All right, questions about 11th grade before we get to the myth versus facts. Okay, junior year grades are the most important when it comes to getting into college. Myth or facts? I have one myth, I have one fact. It's a little bit of both. So all your grades are important when it comes to getting into college, but junior year is the last one that you get to make the best impression, right? So if ninth and 10th grade year were just like, oh my gosh, what happened to my life? 11th grade is that year where you can just turn all of this around and show, no, I really am serious. I can get this done. So that it all counts. If I haven't participated in anything after school, I better start now to look good for college. Myth or fact? I got one fact and one myth. Well, if you're at a school that requires you to volunteer, boy, you better start now. You're not going to graduate. Let's just put that on the table. You got to graduate before you can go to college, right? But again, circumstances matter from a college perspective. If you can't participate in anything after school, say that. It's okay. If you can and just haven't chosen to, yeah, you should start doing something. That is a true statement, but you better do something that you're passionate about, because if you're not into band, but you've decided to join the band, it's not going to be a good experience for you. It's not going to be a good look. Okay, teachers have to give me a letter of recommendation if I ask them for it. Fact or fiction? This is definitely a myth, guys. Just because you ask a teacher does not mean they're obligated to give you a letter of recommendation. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Now, when you have a situation where you are required to get a letter from a particular teacher, because sometimes colleges doing that, and they're still saying no, there's ways we can work around that using the guidance office. But just like everything in life, teachers have choices too. They don't have to give you a letter of recommendation. You can ask very nicely and they can very politely decline. All right. I met most of my graduation requirements in the 11th grade, so I can have a light schedule my senior year. Myth or fact? Somebody said, no, I agree. No, please keep your foot on the gas. You want to demonstrate to colleges that you're out here to be about it, because I guarantee you there's no such thing as taking your foot off the gas once you get to college. I promise you that. All right. 12th grade. And here we're going to touch a little bit about what college is like too. So every single school counselor has a different method for how they like you to request information from them to get the things that they need to get to college. Now, your school counselor is responsible for your school profile. That's that document I said, hi, I'm this high school and this is how many people go here. They're responsible for sending in your transcript, and they're responsible for sending in a letter of recommendation if required by that particular college. Not all colleges require one. They have a process. They will tell you what that process is. Please follow it. Counselors out here, they have so much work to do. They have so many students. They have these processes for a reason. Be organized yourself. The more organized you are, the more it's going to help you help them be organized. Follow the process. Because if things are late, because you did not let them know or did not follow their process, that's on you. That's not on them. If they're late and you followed their process, that's on them. And then we can have a whole different conversation about what to do about it. Balance your activities carefully. Remember, I talked about, if you're paying attention to all your extracurriculars but aren't going to class, or you're falling behind, you're doing high school wrong. That's even more true than ever in the first semester of your 12th grade year. Why do I say that? You're filling out college applications. There's this little thing called homecoming. At various points of the fall semester, sports start, depending on what sports you're in, or they're finishing up, depending on what sports you're in. It's just a busy time. And you might find that September through November, you might have to pare back on something, even though it stinks, to get your college applications done. Balance. And that's another reason why the students I work with don't apply to more than 9 schools, because any more than that, even if it's a low effort type of situation where we're just filling in one essay, it still takes work, and time is precious. And I always want my students to have the best senior year they can. And they're not going to do that if they're pulling their hair out because they have too much stuff to do. Stay on top of your letter of recommendation deadlines. There's easy ways to do this using the Common App and sometimes Naviance, but it's on you. If you're having trouble getting a teacher or even your guidance counselor to fill in your letter of recommendation, and that actually did happen to a student of mine this year, don't wait till the deadline of the college to be like, oh my gosh, it's the deadline and they still haven't done these things. stay on top of it and gently remind them that these things need to happen, particularly your teachers, because they are sometimes they lose a little bit of track of what's due when. Um, After you apply to a college, they're going to give you access to their portal, basically this website that says, here's how you can track if we got all your stuff, right? I can't emphasize this enough. Colleges only communicate with you guys through email. They're not going to text you, right? I guarantee you they're not on Snapchat. Um, they're not going to DM you. They're not sliding into your DMs. That's not happening. Please check your email, and please check your junk mail in your email, because this is the only way you're going to figure out whether that you owe them some more information. And that happens more often than you think. Of course, the last test you're taking, if you're taking AP classes your senior year or your AP exams, it's going to happen in May. But most of all, once you get your applications in, take a deep breath and relax. It's so hard, right, to balance your schoolwork, to balance your activities, and to do all these applications all at the same time. Take a pat on the back when you're finished and recognize the accomplishment for what it is. And then be looking forward to getting those acceptance letters in the spring. That's when they usually happen. But relax. This is everybody has the ability to go to a college if they have prepared for it well. And by this time, you should have been well prepared, right? Because you would have kept your grades up. You would have taken challenging classes. You would have thought a lot about the schools that you want to apply to. And the schools that you apply to are ones that you hopefully will actually want to go to and can afford, because you've had that conversation with your parents as well. So by the time you're finished with your applications in December, just relax. I think we're gonna do one more myth versus fact, and then we're gonna. Oh no, that's it. Sorry. The other thing you guys want to know is, what is college like? So, what kind of questions do you guys have about what college is like? And the best time to take the SATs, that was back in junior year. So first time in taking the SAT or ACT should be in January, February. Second time should be in June or July. And if you absolutely have to take it a third time, no later than August. That's in a normal non-pandemic year. If you have a high school student now that's still being impacted by the pandemic, we can talk offline. Are there any breaks in college? Yes, in a non-pandemic year, there are breaks. So some colleges do fall break, some don't. And fall break is usually really short. At my school, fall break was always in October, and it was like a weekend, so Friday through Sunday. Not much of a break, but a little bit of a break. Then, of course, there's Thanksgiving break and winter break. Now, winter break for college is a lot longer than high school. Winter break for college starts around mid-December, and then you don't go back to school till like now, the last week of January-ish. In a pandemic year, that's a lot different because people are worried about people going home for long extended periods of time and then coming back to campus and living on campus. So that's why some schools have gone hybrid, only letting people who have lab classes, like, chemistry lab or science lab or any type of lab on campus, and everybody else is online. And then there's some schools that are just like, we're doing everything online right now. But generally speaking, you have breaks. The other break you usually get is spring break. And spring break is different than high school. In high school, it's centered around Easter. In college, it's usually in March, hence March Madness. Hope that answered that question. So the when should you do it first question I'm thinking is about the SATs. And SATs, again, junior year, in a normal non-pandemic year, the very first time you should aim to take it is January, February timeframe. The second time you should aim to take it is June, July. And if you absolutely have to take it again, it's the August before your senior year. Okay. Are there parties? Yes, there are definitely parties. I will caution you, though, that if you're partying all the time and not going to class, you're doing college wrong. But if you're going to no parties, you're also doing college wrong. And we're going to say that again. College is as much social and building those friendships and that network that I talked about, like the friends I've had for 20 years, as it is going to class, learning something, and being prepared. A lot of students fall down their freshman year because they're suddenly on their own, like managing their own time and having to get up for class by themselves. Like there's no mom trying to get you out of bed. Like when I went to college, my mom didn't trust me, so she used to call me like at 8 o'clock in the morning to make sure I went to class. No joke. Um, like for a whole year, um, because she wanted to make sure I was going to class. That's not to say that I made it to class 100% of the time, because I'm going to tell you that's not true either. But I can guarantee you that there are some professors who actually do take attendance. And when you don't go to class, it could be a problem because that could be factored into your grade. So balance the social with the academic. There's always got to be balance in life. Let's see. There's, okay. What are the questions you have about what college is like? I know there have to be more than parties and breaks. Come on, guys. Well, another way you can learn about what college is like is by going to college fair. So I mentioned the Alpha Treat one that's coming up in February. They always have panels made up of current college students that answer questions about what college is like. Um, the First Baptist Church of Glen Arden in Maryland had one back in October that did the same thing. It was so awesome, actually. This is the first time they had to do it virtually, but they had students answering questions live about, what was the most challenging thing about when they started going to college. There was a college athlete there, who was talking about he actually had to transfer. He didn't like the first school he was at. It wasn't doing giving him what he needed either academically or socially, and he had to transfer. And he talked about what that was like. The best thing you can do to figure out what colleges are like are not only going to these college fairs, but signing up for the virtual tours. One of the best things, if there's a silver lining about this pandemic, is it's forced colleges to put more information online and more sessions online for you to be able to learn anytime you want about what college is like. And they're all free. I'm going to say that again. They are all free. You can go to a college's website, go to the admissions page, and look for virtual tours. You can do those on your own, or you can sign up for an information session, which you definitely should do if it's a college you want to learn more about, um, and ask questions. They have a live chat feature in most of these things, and you can ask questions. The tours are 99% of the time given by a student, and they're trained to answer questions, and you can ask them anything. I know when I go on these things, because I still go on college tours to learn more about certain colleges, I ask them anything. Since college teaches you about careers, is that still considered a school? Could you, Michaela, can you ask your question a little differently? I'm not sure I understand your question. And while Michaela's typing, are there other questions about what college is like? Okay, I haven't seen an update from Michaela. College doesn't necessarily, I'm going to answer your question this way. Oh, since other schools teach you about a specific topic and in college people teach you about a career. Oh, okay. So you were going where I was about to go. Remember I said at the beginning, colleges teach you how to think. Now, they teach you how to think in a particular major. That's a true statement. But just because you're learning about a particular major doesn't necessarily always translate to a career in that major. For example, my background is engineering, right? But I'm here talking to you and owning a business all about career and college education preparation, right? So I didn't go to undergrad for this. And I'm going to get to Kendall's question in a second. I didn't go to undergrad for this. So I didn't get a bachelor's in education, right? But I'm still doing this. I've gotten additional professional development credits in this subject, which is why I'm qualified to do it. But my whole college career didn't prepare me to go into a career doing this out the gate. I decided to go into this, and I've leveraged, like, used some of my college background to do it. How so? Well, I'm an engineer, and that's, even though I help all sorts of kids go to college, I'm really good at helping kids who want to be engineers or go into STEM majors go to college. Why? Because I've lived that experience. So my point is, you can take your college education and do whatever you want with it. Sometimes that means you need to supplement it a little bit more with additional education in some subjects that you might not have gotten to in school, but your college education can be used for anything. Um, Question here: what's the difference between the Ivy League and the regular? As an Ivy League graduate, I'm gonna tell you nothing. So the Ivy League is really a sports league. It started out as a football conference, believe it or not, of 7 schools in the Northeast so that they could play each other in football. They are all bound by the fact that they have ridiculously low acceptance rates, particularly now, and very high prices. They are schools, as an Ivy League graduate, I mean, I'm going to be very upfront. I mean, there are opportunities that I could have gotten in other places, but that I probably would not have been able to leverage as much as I had gone to an Ivy League university. Then again, there are opportunities at non-Ivy League universities that I wish I had had the opportunity to do that weren't available at my university. Don't get hung up on name, right? Name is not necessarily an important thing. What's the most important thing for your student is fit. Where do they want to go? Where are they going to thrive? If you put somebody who hates cold weather in a cold weather environment, I guarantee you they're not going to be motivated to get up and go to class, right? That's going to, and it's going to hurt them academically. It's going to hurt them socially. It's going to hurt them all over the place. If you put a student who really, really cares about the social aspect of school at a school that only has maybe 10 or 15 clubs they can choose from to as an outlet, they're going to be miserable. Why? Because there's not going to be enough of things for them to do, right? Likewise, if you try and send a kid who really wants to be in an urban environment to the middle of nowhere, even though it's an Ivy League university, they're going to be miserable because that's just not the type of environment they want to be in. So fit, both socially and academically, and I also say financially, but socially and academically are very important. Please don't get hung up on, if my kid doesn't go to an Ivy League school, they will not succeed. That is not true. And you only need evidence of, the ladies I put up on the screen in the beginning. Um, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, none of them went to Ivy League schools, even for graduate school, right? And to students, and parents who are worried about whether they can get the same opportunities at an HBCU as a non-HBCU, of course you can. You absolutely can. HBCUs are in a unique position to help train our students to succeed in the real world, and they do a really good job at it. So don't get hung up on this, oh, Ivy versus non-Ivy, HBCUs are bad. That's not true. The goal here is to find a group of schools that your student applies to that's going to allow them to thrive. All right. College clubs. Had a real quick question about college clubs. So just like high school, colleges have lots of activities you can do, only a million times greater, right? Because there's just more things to do. A lot of this, a lot of the clubs at colleges are student run, meaning um, students organize the clubs. They find the funding for the clubs. They run the activities. They do all that, right? If there's a club that you want to do, or an activity that you want to do and it doesn't have a club, 99.99% of the time, you and 3 friends get together, you petition the university, and you can start your own club, right? So can you guys still hear me? Okay, because there was a comment. Okay. Um, you can start your own club. So there are, so like, the world is your oyster. There are clubs on people who there's clubs on everything you can think of. And if you're playing around with a website, with a school's website, if you go to college life or student life, that's where you're usually going to find a list of clubs and activities that people can participate in. All right, Ms. Bush, I see you have raised your hand. Do you have a question? For some reason, I think she might have gotten kicked out of the program. So with that, we're going to kind of close it out because I know that Dr. Sledge and Val have some announcements, but I want to leave you with a couple things. So there are some upcoming college fairs like we talked about. These slides are actually on my website now. You just go over to the collegeappspecialist.com and go under the resources tab, and you will find these slides so you can register for the virtual HBCU experience, which is actually coming up in about 10 minutes. The Alfred Street HBCU Fair, which is coming up on February 20th. That's very much geared towards seniors this year because they're in a virtual environment, but I think you might be able to sneak in if you can, if you're a parent. And then last but not least, there are a series of fairs from NACAC, which is a nonprofit organization helping organizing college access counselors. It's National Association of College Access Counselors. And they have these free fairs throughout the year. The better thing about these fairs is that they don't sell your information everywhere. So all that marketing mail that I was talking about, by signing up for these, you won't necessarily have that problem. Let's see. I mentioned how you can find me. The collegeappspecialist.com is my website. All of my social media links are on there too if you're looking for me. And at this point, because I know we're short of time, I'm going to pop up the slides, Val and Dr. Sledge, and you let me know how you want to go through them. Give me just a second. I'm going to have to stop the share to do that. Actually, I need to get out of here. There we go. Close you. Back to okay, I'm going to share again. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. We welcome you to please come and join us for our upcoming events. We will have our Black Girls Read Club March 27th from 10 to 12. You can register through Eventbrite. It will be, again, a virtual Zoom event. Next slide, please. We will also have another art event on May 22nd, 2021 from 10 to 12. This will be really exciting. It's a career planning event. You will have the opportunity to meet several young women, to learn about their careers, and to help you expound upon your career, and we will create a vision board. Next slide, please. We will also have a mental health day, middle schoolers, on June 5th, 2021. Again, you will register through Eventbrite. It is a virtual Zoom. Some of the things that we will talk about include mental health, physical health, teen obesity, diseases in African Americans, depression, loneliness, and just you can use this time to talk about some things that you may not feel comfortable talking to your friends about, and you will learn a lot from this event. Thank you. Next slide, please. We also have a 3-part series, a financial literacy series for our high school students. The first series of 3 will be on Saturday, February 13th from 1 to 2:30. Some of the items in the discussion will be about the FAFSA, about different forms of financial aid, how to figure out the cost of college, and how to secure scholarships. Next slide, please. Our second series will be on Saturday, March 27th from 1 to 2:30. Again, these are all virtual. We will be talking about Money 101 and accounts. You'll learn about savings accounts, checking accounts, debit cards, a credit card versus a debit card, how to balance your checkbook, what is your credit score, what are you worth, and certain things like personal financial statements, things that you will need when you are applying for various forms of credit. Next slide, please. Our final series will be on April 24th, 2021 from 1 to 3. And this will be Investment 101. What are investments? How do you invest? what is considered a good and bad investment. We'll talk about E-Trade, Cash App, SoFi, TD, Ameritrade, Acorn, things like IRAs, stocks, and bonds. So please join us for our 3-part series. Invite anyone that you know that is a high school student. Next slide, please. I will turn us over to Dr. Rebecca Sledge, our chair of this event. Thank you.
Well, this concludes our workshop. Thank you, Ms. Tamara, for leading us through that. I'm sure there's a lot of, I know there was a lot of useful information. I learned some new things, and I hope our parents and our students on the workshop today learned some valuable things for your students that you can do right now to prepare your students and those who have high schoolers. Please come back to our workshops. We have your email addresses, so you will have access and hear about this. We'll send it to you so you can share this information with your friends. You can share with other parents who may have middle school and high schoolers coming up. The list of the workshops, when Ms. Tamara gives you the link to her website, she'll share the upcoming events on her website as well. So definitely visit her website so you can pull down today's slides. I know there's a lot of information for your students, so they can go back and read it. And for parents, you can have sort of an outline or a gauge that you can use to follow to help you get your middle schoolers to high school. And if there are no more questions coming in the chat, Ms. Caroline, are there any more questions coming in? If there are no more questions, then
So,
we'll wait
Dr.
a
Sledge,
second.
it's not questions. I just put some the links to both my website and to Khan Academy into the chat for folks.
Okay. So great. Before we log off, if you can go to the chat and pull down these links. There's a link for Khan Academy, www.khanacademy.org, and Khan is Khan, and then Academy, ACADEMY.org. And then Ms. Tamara's website is the collegeappspecialist.com. So those two links will provide you all today's information that you and your students need to be successful. So I know that everyone's on mute, but I just want to applaud Ms. Tamara and Tamara. I keep saying your name incorrect, so I apologize. But we can give her all an applause and leave comments on the website.
Thank you all for attending. It's been a blast.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Did you end the meeting for everyone?
Not yet.